Hello everybody, this is Duke with a video on your initial beta flight configuration for the FPV class. And I have here on camera the devices and things you'll need in order to complete this video, as well as a list of prerequisites, which we'll switch over to real quick. Before you start this video, you want to have these things done. Okay, so in this video, I'm assuming you've already physically completed your aircraft, the soldering's done, basically soldering, wiring's done, all that's finished. Your motors and stuff are of course attached to your frame. I would recommend you have things screwed down on the standoffs and stuff. Instead of doing this for the first time, you're going to take it apart again to conformal coat it or waterproof it later. It's okay if you don't have everything Loctited per se. We want to have motors securely attached, flight controller and ESC securely attached. The reason for that is because we don't want things moving around while we're plugging and unplugging things. That can lead to short circuits and can damage components. So we do want things to be secure even if they're not in their final position with Loctite and everything, if that makes sense. Okay. So we want to have that completed. We want to have also, go back over here to our dot cam. We also want to have our transmitter, okay, and our receiver already bound to each other. So if you don't know how to do that yet or haven't done that yet, then pause and go to my videos regarding that, the Express LRS video series, which you can find on Canvas or on YouTube. Make sure those are bound together, the receiver and the transmitter. And also, kind of part of that, you want to have a model created on your transmitter. So that's the third piece there. Let's see. Back to this. Sorry. Okay, so physical assembly complete. Your model is created, and then you've bound your receiver inside of that model, so your transmitter receiver are bound up together. Those three things, I believe, should be all the prerequisites you need to complete this video. We're going to go through all the software stuff. Okay. We're going to need a few things, like I said, transmitter and your quad that's basically ready to go. You're also going to need a battery or a power supply. It doesn't matter, you can use a wall power supply for this too. And then you want to have some way of viewing the video feed. So this is an FPV monitor. Just you can hold it in your hand and look at the camera feed from the drone. Or of course, if you have your goggles, you can use those as well. Okay. One thing that's very important that I do not have, that you do not want to have, is to not have my props installed. Okay, props don't need to be on. We want to make sure they're off for this entire process. We do not need the propellers installed, and they will be dangerous if they are installed. So please make sure you don't have those installed. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back and forth a little bit between the dot cam and the computer, like my typical fashion, I guess you could say. And we're going to go through the initial setup and everything of the quadcopter in Beta Flight Configurator. And I'll try to go back and forth between showing you what I'm doing here on the bench, which is not as much as what I'm doing on the computer. Okay. So we're going to go over to our display capture first. All right. And I'm going to try to move this quad window or this window. Sorry, give me just a minute here, you guys. There we go. So we can kind of see it a little bit. I'll probably toggle it on and off still, but that way we can kind of see what's going on most of the time with regard to everything else I'm doing on the computer. So I'm going to move the transmitter and this stuff out of the way for a minute. Initially, we just make sure we have our quadcopter, okay? And of course, a USB cable. I forgot to mention USB cable to plug into your computer. So let's open up Betaflight. Okay, and we should be able to have that overlaid on top of Betaflight. Okay, good. I think that's working. So we're going to open up Betaflight, and we're going to plug our quadcopter into the computer. You should get a nice little da-dun sound. Okay, little Windows sound there. And again, I have auto connect turned on, so mine automatically connected and jumped into Betaflight, whereas if this is turned off, you'll need to make sure you see a COM port here and then hit connect. So say COM something, it might not say 6, yours might be a different number. That's totally different for each computer. Then you just hit connect and it will jump in there. Okay. If for some reason you're not able to connect, even you don't see any COM ports, there's nothing here, okay, then you may have a driver issue with your computer. And I'll have to just help you with that one-on-one. I'm not going to cover it in the video, but typically some kind of driver is incorrect so that your computer doesn't recognize the flight controller. And if it doesn't recognize the flight controller at all, we can't really do anything in this video. So we want to get that fixed first. Hopefully it works well for you and does recognize it. You can leave auto connect toggled, then you hit connect up here on the right hand side. Okay. Here's our main page. You should be familiar with this already from your earlier assignment. You'll also notice I have expert mode enabled right here. You may not have that enabled from the default. I'm going to operate with that enabled. So if things are looking different for you than for me, make sure you have that checked. You can always disable it later if it's a cleaner interface for you or something like that. All right. So my aircraft has been connected to the computer. Yours will look a little bit different, maybe upside down when you first start, and that's okay because you haven't set yours up yet. Mine's already been set up. Okay. But the first thing we're going to do before we do any setup is we need to update our firmware on our flight controller. I believe, I can't remember what firmware version these boards are running from the factory, but the latest version we can run, as I've just found out, is 4.4.3. Okay, so that is the latest stable version of Betaflight as far as I understand. And so we're going to update our firmware to that version first before we do any settings in here, because there's a chance it could get erased if we change them here and then update the firmware. Okay. So once we know it's connecting and everything like that, we're going to go over to the left-hand side and down to the CLI tab. Okay. And we're going to use this command to put our board into DFU mode, which stands for Direct Firmware Upload mode, or Direct Firmware Update. I can't remember if it's Update or Upload. But either way, we're going to use a command here to put our flight controller into this specific mode, which will allow us to update the firmware. Okay. All we're going to type is BL for bootloader, and we're going to press Enter. And the screen should change like that. Oh, maybe you guys couldn't see that actually because this was in the way. Probably. Let me turn that off. Okay, let's go back and do that one more time. As you can see, I'm a relative amateur here with YouTube type stuff. Multiple displays and everything. Okay, sorry. So what I just did was I went down to the CLI tab down here on the left-hand side. Okay. And I typed in BL and pressed Enter. That will put our board into bootloader mode. The screen should change, and you'll see up here now it says DFU STM32 bootloader instead of saying COM6 or whatever it said before. Okay, that's fine. It has to be in this mode in order for us to update the firmware. So after your flight controller is in this mode, you're going to click on this Update Firmware button, okay, here, and you should see a screen like this. Now you may not have anything populated here yet because you haven't done this before, but what you can do is you can select the same one I have here, SkyStar F7 HD Pro from the drop-down list, and you can type to search and stuff. Make sure you select the SkyStar's F7 HD Pro, not just the HD. Okay, that is the name, or it's called the target of our flight controller. Okay. Down here we have our version of Betaflight, and as you can see the latest version here that shows as available for us is 4.4.3. So we're going to select that. We will leave this no reboot sequence checked, full chip erase checked. Everything else you can leave as it is. Okay, it should be all default. Okay. We're going to go down here to where it says load firmware online and click that button. It's going to give us a little progress bar right here. It's pretty fast, but there's a progress bar right there. It has pulled the firmware from an online repository specifically for our flight controller, so we can now load it or flash it onto the flight controller. The flash firmware button here will do that. That basically installs or flashes this code onto our flight controller to give us that newer version of Betaflight. Now I've already flashed mine, so I'm not going to flash it again, but you'll hit this flash firmware button down here, okay? And you'll then see some progress bars, green progress bar here, it'll erase, and then it will load, and then it should give you a success message at the end. Once the success message is there, and it's green and everything's good, you can go ahead and go back up here to the connect button and connect to your flight controller. Now I'm going to have to unplug mine because I'm in the bootloader mode. Normally you'll get out of the bootloader mode automatically when you flash the firmware. So I'm just going to unplug mine, plug it back in. Okay. Then it should go into the normal mode. Okay. Auto connect. I'm going to go ahead and connect to my flight controller. So if you want to pause the video here, that's fine. As you've finished flashing your firmware, then it will reconnect to Betaflight. Okay. And we'll get this page here. All right. Now there'll be another pop-up for you guys. Again, I'm not showing it because I didn't just flash my firmware like you have. There'll be a pop-up here that says something to the order of, your flight controller, your board has custom defaults. Would you like to apply these? Yes, we want to apply the custom defaults. So click Apply Custom Defaults, let that load, and then you should be greeted with a page more or less like this, with some other things talking about your accelerometer and setting up your motor protocols. You can hit OK on that. We're going to set up accelerometer and motor protocols as well. So just apply the custom defaults. The next warning that pops up that talks about accelerometer and motor protocols, just hit OK, and we'll continue on from there. Let's break the video here.